So it's more blessed to give, as the saying says, because it's in the giving that we receive. So my job these days and always has been to thank people. MANNA is here because of the generosity of a lot of people in all the different sectors, no matter what. We are here because of others. We are doing what we do because of others. We could not do it. We couldn't do it without our partners with the government. We couldn't do our partners in the private business sector. We couldn't do it without individual people who are supportive of this in various ways, many ways. We, are a product of other people's generosity and support and commitment to justice, a commitment to opportunity, a commitment to developing and improving the lives and the communities of people. I was running a program called Hope in a Home for Love of Children, a program for Love of Children. And my wife and I and others had started the program for homeless families and families getting their kids back out of foster care, families on the verge of losing their children for various reasons, families homeless. And for 5 years we created this program, bought property in DC, fixed it up with the family and with volunteers and whatnot, and rented the property to the families because they didn't have housing, and housing is a basic thing for family stability, and everybody knows that. And then there's a support system around the family. Well, after when the first group of families were getting ready to graduate, because it was a transitional program, they needed to take a step so we could take on more homeless families, a transitional program, Hope in a Home. They came to me, the families, and said, we do not want to go back into a bad situation like we came out of. We've improved our lives, we've changed, we've got goals. We realize that we can do more than we ever dreamed. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, we want to own something. Nobody in our family has ever owned anything. We've never owned anything. And this was back when property was just very inexpensive, cheap, some of it just being given away. This was 40-something years ago, 45 years ago, okay? And so the property and was just really out there to be taken, a lot of vacant and boarded up property and all, and nobody doing development in DC. So we said okay, and so we began to purchase property. There was no funds to help them purchase like it is now. So I had to go to my friends and other places to help loan money and just, began to piece together, cobble together different sources of financing so that these families could purchase. What MANNA is? Well, the name comes from the Bible. There's Hebrew scripture when the Hebrew slaves escaped. They had nothing but the clothes on their back and each other and God. And they got out in the wilderness, the desert, and they had no food. And each day they prayed, and they had to depend on God providing the food. And so they had this food substance that appeared each morning, the story says. And they called it manna. Manna from heaven. And when we started MANNA, this is what came to us. So many people, 300 people called us the next day after the first one, that are so hungry for this, that are so hungry for opportunity, for hope, for community, for possibility. And we started in a time when it seemed impossible to do in this city. And people felt that. And so what we did with the first house was I got it for little or nothing. And I have a friend in Boston who put up money to renovate and to finance their purchasing a house, because DC had been redlined. That is, the banks were not giving any loans in DC inner city, and the neighborhoods we were working in at all. And so we got this first house. It was Christmas time. A family who had $500 in the court registry from another landlord that they were fighting, and I matched them with this upper income buyer, upper income investor. And back then, you could get an accelerated depreciation if you invested in low-income housing over 5 years. And so we worked up a plan for the family, for a partnership between the family and the investor. And we cobbled together a couple other loans, and then they were to buy out the investor at the end of 5 years over making payments. And that happened, first time. Had an article in the Post about this family and purchasing at Christmas time. It's very appropriate and for the season. And we got 300 calls the next day from people wanting to purchase. And from there, and so it was very successful, and the family, the original family's still there in the house. And of course, the whole environment has changed now. Everybody wants to live in DC and the prices are so high. But back then, we didn't have money, there weren't loans, there wasn't available funding in terms of homeownership like it is now, but the property was cheap. We could renovate it and fix it up for not that much, and that they could go into it, and we had counseling and everything else, support systems for the families. And so we went from one house, and then two, and then three, and then 10, and now over 2,000. We have been creating hope. Hope and a sense of the common good, and a sense that we're all connected to each other. What happens to one, no matter how poor, how different, whatever, is also connected to another. So we are building that common good. And the giving that everybody does helps to contribute to that. There's a hope, there is a vision for a new community and the beloved community. And that is a great thing to be a part of, and we can't do anything but say thank you and to continue to do what we're doing and to produce the results that we are producing.